To the NFC East. Because I told Harry we had plenty of time. I thought the AFC East was we have one new head coach in Dan Quinn who we can sort of like. I don't know how you want to slot him out because he has been a head coach before. He's been to a Super Bowl. He brings in Cliff Kingsbury, former head coach, as his offensive coordinator. You got change in Philly with Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio in to boost up Nick Sirianni. Certainly helps that coaching staff. Brian Schottenheimer with Mike McCarthy, and now Mike Zimmer replaces Dan Quinn. So, I mean, you talk about some incestual coordinator moves here. The former Cowboys OC is now with the Eagles. Zimmer back and to replace the guy who's now the head coach of Washington. I think this is a hard one.
This is an intriguing one.
I mean, I think it's McCarthy one for me. Okay. I have to put Sirianni, and in part because of what he's done so far in his short tenure, but also his OCDC. I think Vic Fangio, Kellen Moore are proven.
Yes.
And then you look at, I think Dan Quinn third because he's been to a Super Bowl.
I was going to say that too.
And then you got Brian Dable, who's also taken a team to the playoffs, though, when a lot of people didn't find the Giants 2 years ago a Super Bowl or a playoff team. Yeah. But unfortunately, he'd have to put him at 4, right? Just sheerly based on the short tenure he's had.
Well, when I look at this, and I'm with you, Brady, I think you stated it perfectly before we started this ranking. Like the head coach is I won't say end all be all, but like that's the major factor in deciding like who has the better coaching staff. And then you look at Mike McCarthy, right? Won a Super Bowl with Green Bay. He's gone to the playoffs, 3 straight years with the Dallas Cowboys. And then you look at Mike Zimmer, right, is known to be a great defensive-minded coach. You bring him in after you lose Dan Quinn to go to the Commanders, and Brian Schottenheimer has been the coach. Family, they grew up in football, right? And then Nick Sirianni, the big question for him last year, he lost both coordinators, and then he kind of hired 2 inexperienced guys, right? And we saw how that hurt the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, he rectified that by getting 2 very experienced guys and bringing in Kellen Moore and Vic Fangio. Now, me and Brady had a discussion, I think, like last week. And my question is kind of like with Bill Belichick, because the issues in Miami with Vic Fangio was like things that he was asking players to do, they weren't comfortable with. And he was setting his ways and saying, this is how we're going to do it. Like, is that going to work with the personalities and with the Philadelphia Eagles? And we've already seen the thing with A.J. Brown happen this year. Now, again, that's not on his side of the ball, but there's a lot of different characteristics with the Philadelphia Eagles as far as those players and how strong, I won't say strong-willed they are, but there's a lot of superstar players on that team. Like, I wonder how that, relationship is going to work. I put Brian Dable at 4 because it was crazy, Brady. We had this discussion after the article came out with the Jets, right? And if the thing that happened with Brian Daboll and Wink Martindale happened with the Jets, like people would still be talking about that, but because it's the Giants, they aren't. And then there was rumors that him and Mike Kafka weren't getting along either, and so potentially Mike Kafka was going to leave and go be an offensive coordinator somewhere else. So I think for that factor alone, just because of the dissension in that home base, I would put them at 4.
I think you have to say that Brian Dable is still, just because of what happened last season. Like, I think this is a very high floor division in terms of the coaching. But like Brian Dable's a bigger unknown than Dan Quinn, more than likely. We have more experience seeing Dan Quinn as head coach. Yeah. So I agree with you. I think Dan Quinn 3, Brian Dable 4 in terms of those coaching staffs. I think that what Mike McCarthy showed, getting rid of Kellen Moore and the way he ran that offense, how Dak Prescott played, I think Tony Pollard could be due for a bounce back, how CeeDee Lamb played, that you can very justifiably say that McCarthy and Schottenheimer, even with are an upgrade or a big step up from Sirianni and Kellen Moore. And then I think Zimmer and Fangio are pretty similar in terms of aggressive, cranky old man who, we'll see how the defense adjusts to that. So I agree with you guys on the order. I think that's a pretty solid step up.
NFC East is the grumpier old men division on defense.
I mean, on offense too. I mean, Dable and Sirianni are kind of grumpy old men. This is a pretty
middle-aged men.
Dable looks like a frat dude who's got like 2 kids and is screaming at them while they're playing soccer. Like they're like 2 10-year-old kids.
Like Will Ferrell in the fraternity movie.
Yeah, old school. Love old school.
Old school, yeah.